For all the speakers, I'm going to be making you co-hosts so that when we mute the audience, we don't mute you.
Cool, thank you. Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You too, how are you?
Taking the time to do this?
Yeah, of course, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I think that's all of the panelists who are here yet. If you're a panelist and you're here and I did not make you a co-host, please tell me. I like your background, by the way.
Thank you, it's from MapleStory. I have a bunch of like MapleStory and game backgrounds. I felt like, because it's like Ivy themed, I'll choose a green one.
Very fun.
I was gonna go with this one too, or this one. I feel like the green today, so I'll do that one.
It's very IvyHacks themed with the green.
Yeah. Thank you.
And for all of the audience members, remember that Discord, there's an events discussion thing if you wanted to discuss anything, and then in the events Q&A, where you will be able to post questions for the panelists and give a thumbs up if it's a question you like, so that I know which questions people are most interested in. We're going to give people to 3:05 just to make their way over from other events that were running up until this point. So hang tight for a minute, everyone. Thanks. For those who just arrived, we're going to start at 3:05 because we're just giving people a minute to trickle in from the events that we're just finishing up. Okay, so it's 3:05, so I think we're going to get started. So we're going to start by asking all the panelists to please introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do in tech. And I'm just going to go through the panelists on the list in the order that they appear on my Zoom. So why don't we start with Catalina?
Hi, everyone. My name is Catalina Sánchez-Maes. I'm a junior in computer science at New Mexico State University. And I predominantly do a lot of diversity outreach in addition to kind of exploring what I want to do in computer science, which currently is really between three big fields, SWE, human-computer interaction, and PM. So trying to whittle that down a bit.
Thanks. And Erica?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Baity, and I am the founder and chief data evangelist at Anologics. We are a boutique agency focused on data strategy, integration, and management for small businesses, as well as SaaS-based B2B organizations.
Thanks. Grace?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Grace. I'm currently a user experience design intern at Electronic Arts for the summer and fall. Outside of my internship, I also run a really large design community called Design Buddies. And I also run an art business on the side. I used to table at anime conventions before the virus happened. And I'm finishing up my last year of grad school as a computer science and engineering student. But I just graduated from undergrad in bioengineering. So I've been mostly self-taught, and I learned a lot along the way too.
Thanks. And let's see, Naba? Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
All good.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naba Rizvi. I'm a first-year PhD student at UCSD, and I'm being advised by Professor Nadir Weibel. Just like most of the people who have spoken before me, I'm also passionate about diversity, using tech for social good, and I also did not start my undergrad off as a CS major. I actually started off as a liberal arts major. I was going into politics and international relations. So as a PhD student with my research, I am particularly interested in studying bias in healthcare and accessibility. And on top of like all the research I do, I also run a community, an online community called Non-Traditional Techies, which is basically just like a safe space for people like us to talk, share resources with each other, provide mentorship, things like that.
Great. Thanks. And I think that's all of the panelists who are here. Sam, if you're here under a different name, please pipe up, but I assume she's might be having some technical difficulties logging in or something. And so I'll start on to the next question. What was your journey in getting to where you are today? What obstacles did you face? How did you overcome them? So why don't we go in the same order as before, if that's good?
So my journey into tech is a very tumultuous one that is very still tumultuous. When I was in 5th grade, there was this day-long program called Gutsy Girls, where we used a makey-makey to turn a banana into a piano. And I was like, I like this. I want to do this. And there soon started my entire life up till now. But it wasn't always so nice and clean. A lot of these programs I wanted to do and things I wanted to do weren't accessible because of a financial barrier, as well as people weren't willing to put in the time and the effort to support these products. So as an elementary schooler and as a middle schooler, I kind of had to learn to go out and financially fund these things by asking Lockheed Martin, local sponsors, and kind of saying like, oh, you're gonna tell me now? Watch me. So that's kind of how I got into tech, was through creating my own programs and then implementing them to be sustained within the school system. And then after college, kind of proliferating that within the CS pipeline that we've now created.
Thanks. Erica? All good.
So I actually started, I thought I wanted to be a network engineer, and then I did an internship and realized that's not what I wanted to do. And I was in my senior year and ended up taking a database management course. And my professor was an adjunct professor. And so he was the DBA for Home Depot. And so he came to the class with real world experience, and it was as everything clicked for me. And so I knew from the second day of class that, okay, I wanted to work in the data space. And I've been blessed to stay true to that over the years. Some of the obstacles, the key obstacle that I faced is, one, being a woman, and then being a woman of color in this field. There was a lot of people that said no, and similar to Catalina, if someone tells me I can't do something, my motto is, I am going to show you that I can. And anytime an obstacle came up, whether it was through leveraging someone within my network or creating that space for myself, it was my job to overcome that. And for me, staying true to that and understanding that this is my passion and no one can take my passion away from me, regardless as to how they try, that is what kept me in this field, as well as going on to start my own business. And it's allowed me to open doors for other women of color, introducing them to the space of technology, teaching them how to overcome the male naysayers. And to any men that are on the panel, this is not against you. This is just a reality that we live as women. And so therefore, just creating a safe space and letting women know to not be discouraged, and encouraging myself as well as others. So that's this has been my journey.
Cool. Yeah. So for me, I went through like 4 different career changes in my life. Growing up, I've always just like wanted to explore different things and kind of like push the limits on things. And growing up, I want to be an anime artist. I want to like anime artist and game designer, just draw all day. I also ran cross country and track, which later inspired me to study bioengineering for undergrad. At the same time, I was bullied a lot online and middle school, which ultimately leads me to my other passion of community building and building inclusive and diverse communities. So I came to college as a bioengineering major, wanting to learn how to biohack myself to run faster because I was really, really into running. Then after 2 years of doing so, I learned the hard way that I should never do things just for my resume. I was just like not enjoying my lab work every day and just like faking a smile. And ultimately, like my professor like saw my face like always light up when I talk about games. He gave me permission to quit, and I needed that because I was like so afraid to say no when I was like a junior in college. And then at the same time, my school opened up a virtual reality lab, and I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials and taught myself how to make games in 3D model and VR. And it really gave me the realization that I'm not bound to my major. I can really just like look up any resources online and learn them and find a community community plus resources. I don't really need professors to tell me like, oh, I can't do that. And then after kind of doing a few internships in software engineering and VR and doing game development, I later decided to pivot to design. My pivot to design was pretty rocky, like in school, because I had professors telling me to stay in my lane, how I shouldn't be pursuing design, how I should stay with my major, and comparing myself to their young daughters who started design from a young age. So it's pretty discouraging. And at the same time, I faced a lot of adversity going to design because in other design communities online, people always told me I shouldn't be doing design because I don't have a design degree. They were judging me for questions and always just like not taking me seriously because I wasn't studying design in school. I was studying computer science and engineering because I later decided to pivot like kind of after I started grad school. So that kind of all inspired me to create Design Buddies, a really inclusive design community. And since April 2020, we have over 8,100 members who joined because I just want to create a safe space where beginners like me can feel not be afraid of being judged. And also I paved my way to doing my UX design internship at EA today. And I'm now working on products to help players and be less toxic overall online. So I'm really passionate about kind of building inclusive communities and building just like more inclusive products in general.
Thanks.
So for me, as I mentioned earlier, I originally started off as a liberal arts major, and I wanted to become a lawyer before I switched to tech. So I interned with a lawyer at a nonprofit grassroots civil rights advocacy group that basically helps Muslim Americans living in the United States who might be like facing like civil rights violations and things like that. And I also interned with a San Francisco-based nonprofit that helps survivors of domestic abuse become financially independent. And I also ended up interning for my state senate and did like a research internship in political science at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So like before switching to tech, I had this wealth of experiences doing different work, doing a lot of like taking on various and diverse roles in different politics and social work related internships. So when I made that decision to like completely switch from doing this type of work to tech, the biggest obstacle that I faced was a lack of mentorship, actually, because I'm a first generation college student and the first in my family to study STEM. So at that time, I didn't know if computer science was going to be right for me. And I also had no idea how you can like break into tech, especially when you're so far away from like a major tech hub. There's very, very few resources for us out like where I lived in a Rust Belt city in the Midwest. There was practically nothing there. So that's kind of what inspired me to start Non-Traditional Techies. It's an organization not just for non-traditional techies all over the world, but it also helps people who are geographically isolated from tech hubs find opportunities. And so like one of the biggest obstacles that you face when you're not living near a tech hub or a big city is that if you're broke, which a lot of people who are not in tech tend to be, then you cannot just like afford to travel to a conference or a hackathon. So that's why I believe it's important to have these online spaces, because they break the financial obstacles that people face along the way. So that pretty much was my biggest obstacle, being geographically isolated from tech hubs and not having mentors in the field.
So thanks. The next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self and or to someone who's starting out in tech today?
The advice that I would give to my younger self would be to don't be afraid to chase your dreams. That's number one. But most importantly, don't be afraid to say no. So often when we start out in our careers, we want to say yes, 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 yes. But that doesn't earn you any brownie points, especially when you're saying yes to things that go against your moral views, right? And it's okay to say no. And as a woman, it's okay to say no. And also to have goals. And it doesn't matter how massive or out of reach or out of touch those goals are. Write them down, keep them at the forefront, and don't let anything or anyone deter you from that. That's the advice that I would give to myself, my younger self, and that's the advice I would give to anyone. I'm not going to say tech is easy because it's not, but it's very fulfilling and rewarding. And I think that it's probably the only industry that, you know, you may be up late at night trying to figure out a problem, but once you figure it out, one, you'll never forget how to solve it. But second, it's a fulfilling experience. It's self-rewarding. And it may seem lonely, but it's okay to say no and stay true to your goals. That's the advice I would give to anyone.
Thanks. That's very good advice. Does anyone have anything they want to add to that question?
Yeah, for me, it's you don't need permission to do anything you want. Because my experience is the professors telling like professors who are like who had like 20 patents and like all these high ranking told me like I can't pursue design. But then again, they might have good intentions, they're experts in their field, but they're not experts in your field. So basically you're the CEO of your own life. Like no one really has qualifications to make decisions for you. And yeah, because I feel like when I was younger, I always looked up to people who might have more experiences but might have told me like, no, I can't do that. But then in reality, they're not qualified to make that decision. So yeah, don't let anyone tell you no as well. And don't be afraid to say no as well.
I also have something I want to add here. So when I was an undergrad, I actually had a guy who came up to me and he said, women stick to softer sciences like chemistry because we can't handle hard sciences like CS. And it's funny that he said that to me because he ended up dropping out of the CS program. And now I'm earning a PhD at a top 20 CS program. So, and I've also received awards and internships from Google, Adobe, Microsoft, and NCWIT. So, you know, like basically what I'm saying here is that you should always stick to doing what you love and do not ever allow other people to make you feel like you're not smart enough.
Thanks.
If I could add one thing to that, I don't know if I can because it's so eloquently stated by these other young ladies. But for me, what I would tell myself is that you can't tackle the world. And I'm a very ambitious person and I want to do a lot of things. And I've been discriminated many times because of my age. First of all, usually the youngest person in these circles, but also because I'm a woman in these spaces. I'm also Hispanic. And so being that place, but at the same time, also knowing that I can't fight every single battle. And kind of taking that to be like, this is ethically, morally terrible, like this breaks Title IX and like discrimination on the basis of sex and so many things. But acknowledging that, yes, this is a horrible thing and I don't think that it should persist in this university that I'm at. But I also need to take care of myself and my health and my goals and what I need to do. And so what I would say to myself is that it's okay to focus on me, to focus on what I need. Even though I need to give these problems and make people aware of them, I can't take the lead in those.
Well, thank you. Everyone gave very, very useful advice. Next question I had was, what kind of role has mentorship and/or networking played in your career? And how did you make these connections with others? And I also wanted to remind people that you can post some questions in the Q&A if anyone has any questions they'd like to add to my list.
I can start. So for me, I've always been like active in online communities, and before I was always like scared like what exactly is networking. I know like I go to a lot of career seminars or I tell you like importance of networking, but no one really explained to me what it was until I met my mentor, who's a senior recruiter in the biotech space. And I met him because I help run this other Facebook group called Subtle Asians Bay Area, and I have a work study chat, and he just like wanted to be added in the chat, and he asked if I needed help with anything, and I was a bit struggling my job search because of COVID and having lack of design experience and everything. This is back in March. He gave me this advice to tell like basically like DM people, like send connection requests to people on LinkedIn. So actually for my internship, I've actually previously got rejected by Electronic Arts twice over the past few years, but I ended up sending 400 connection requests to various directors in tech and design, and doing 30 coffee chats, and one of them happened to be my current manager at EA. So that's how networking played a role, and I feel like networking, it's just making a friend. It should be a two-way street, and I always just usually ask for like an informational interview, learn about their story, find things in common, and not asking for a job, because like when people refer you, they're like putting their reputation on the line for someone they don't know as well yet. So I wouldn't ask for a job, but I always ask like how I can help out the end as well. So networking has just played a huge role in my life, like gave me like an opportunity after, because I got my offer like end of May. It was really late with the internships and everything too. So I'm really glad it happened. It's all through networking and just like applying, just like kind of basically meeting mentors in my life who really just like changed everything for me, just by sending 400 connection requests on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for me, I may be a little bit older than most of you, but the role that mentorship has played for me, it transitioned me from being a contributor on a team to actually leading a team. My mentor guided me on how to look at the big picture, and not just be focused on my piece of the cog in the wheel, right? My mentor has also shown me how to look at the financial impact. So if you have a goal to transition into executive leadership, it's important, it's good that you are able to contribute on an individual level, but working with someone who is already at that level that can guide you and kind of auto-correct some of the things, your approach as to how you attack and solve a problem, the projects that are given to you, how to navigate those projects and move yourself kind of higher up the contribution ladder. So, and how I go about finding mentors, if you're doing something that I want to do, and I want to strive to be in that position, then I ask. That goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. Don't be afraid to say no. When you learn how to say no, it also builds your confidence in your ability to approach those that you may feel are out of reach. And so I am active on LinkedIn. I am active on Instagram. And if there's somebody that's, promoting something or doing something or posting something that I'm interested in, I try to connect with them professionally. And like I said, as far as mentoring goes, if they're at a level where I want to be, just reaching out and doing, like Grace said, having coffee chats and looking at establishing a relationship and seeing what I can contribute. And then from there, it becomes a balanced relationship where I'm learning how to navigate my career.
I'll just add something real quick. Mine is, I agree with everything that both the panelists said before me. I just wanted to add this tiny thing that mentorship and networking it doesn't just help you like advance in your career and like be able to like take that next step, like get that next job and everything. It can also help you realize that you're not alone. So there's like, for example, for me, I used to think that because I'm a liberal arts major, I'm a woman, I'm a first generation college student, and I never got much exposure to STEM when I was younger. Like, I just thought someone like me can never be in tech. Like I never saw someone like me fitting in, but then as I started like branching out, talking to more people, I realized that I'm actually not alone, and it's a good thing to feel like that, because that gives you more confidence in the work that you do.
So for me, my mentorship and my network has always kind of been non-traditional. But I would like to flip the idea of networking and mentorship kind of on its head, right? Coming from a big Hispanic family, you think of people as family. Like these people that you're going to meet with and that you're going to network with, they're going to support you, but you have to support them. And you create this network that's your family, right? And you may not always agree on everything. Oh goodness, but it's fundamentally similar to that. And like whenever I wanted to do something, my family has always been a sounding board. Even in my elementary school years, my professor mom would make us do math in the summers, and we absolutely hated it. But just kind of having that sounding board of like why you're doing it in the first place. Like, what are you going to get out of it? And just keeping that in mind while also being able to help others with what you're doing, right? Because you may be networking with this person to get a job, but if you're networking with this person and you don't necessarily, like, they're not vibing with them, are they worthy to be within your network and to take your time at the same time? And so you have to kind of build this family around you. And that's just kind of the way I think about it, is I don't really network. I find my family.
Thanks. So the next question I had was, what does it mean to you to have a non-traditional pathway in tech? And like, what does it mean to have a non-traditional pathway in tech? What advice would you give to someone on a non-traditional pathway in tech?
I guess I can start. So I founded and I'm currently leading the organization Non-Traditional Techies, which I mentioned a lot today. And through this, I have had the privilege of like organizing panels that are very similar to this and doing a whole bunch of different programs. And I've realized that there is no right or wrong way to be non-traditional. It's just there's so much diversity in our community. Like there's single moms, there's veterans, first generation college students, low-income students, international students, people who have multiple degrees, people without any degrees. Like there's no like cookie cutter, like, you know, clear cut path that, okay, you fit this criteria, you're non-traditional. And I think that it is the diversity of our community that is a huge asset. Because if you think about it, like everybody's story is different, right? So for example, my liberal arts background, I think, has played a huge role in helping me win 5 out of the 7 hackathons I competed in, because like I can understand social justice issues on a deeper level because I did so many internships and I read so much literature that the standard CS major just doesn't read. So when like the advice I would give to someone who has a non-traditional pathway in tech is just to embrace your uniqueness. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way of being non-traditional, and you shouldn't view your differences as something that makes you inferior to other people, but rather as something that's an asset that you can really use to advance in your career and make yourself stand out.
Thanks. Does anyone have anything they want to add to that question?
Yeah, I love that, because I used to feel like inferior in tech because I was a bioengineering pre-med student, and over the past few years I really learned to embrace my differences and everything too. And I kind of define non-traditional as in, for me, it felt like not majoring in that field, because I'm in design, but I majored in engineering, and I was looked down upon by other designers for not majoring in design. And my advice would just kind of like, you can really teach yourself a lot of things online. Like all you need is an online community, like to support you if you don't have any support system in your real life, because I didn't, because there was no design major at my school, and like online resources and just like having a support group. And there are always trying to be people like who might be in your life, like me, who might tell you it's not the right thing to do, or like you should stay in your lane, you shouldn't be pursuing that because you majored in that. So that was for me my personal experience of just like being blocked into doing whatever I want. So yeah, just finding like resources online and a good support system. You don't need a degree in tech to feel like you need to get a role in tech. Like in tech, it's so like interdisciplinary. Like I met like English majors, people who didn't go into college, who are like senior director software engineers at like top tech companies. So you shouldn't let your background stop you. And that's the advice I would give.
Does anyone want to add? Oh, so, Catalina?
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Maybe not. Okay. For me, like I've been in CS for a while, but I've been in different aspects of CS. I started in Starlock of TNG, dates me a little bit, but with block programming and everything. And I've done a internship with Senator Tom Udall working on the CREATE Act, and then all of these following internships have been between like policy, the intersectionality of like tech. And so what non-traditional means to me isn't necessarily like, oh, I've been in this field. This field is so fast. Like you can be talking about cybersecurity and UXR is completely different areas that they're worlds away. And so for me, being non-traditional means that I am learning these skills in a different way than other people. I'm thinking about these problems in a different fashion. And the best advice I could even give people who are non-traditional is to understand educational theory, which is really high up there, right? Okay, let's break this down. But what that means is like, how do you best learn? And then you take that and you're like, okay, well, for this age range, I founded a program called Future IT Girls, where I teach 3rd through 5th grade girls computational thinking through ballroom dance, programming, and research. And the reason why I'm able to do all these fundamental things is because I can understand how they learn. And they don't all learn the same. They're not all the same person, right? And I think we lose that within our educational systems when we're indoctrinated into this 1950s style of academic teaching. And that gets lost in translation. And so no matter what you want to do, even if you don't want to go into tech, we'll miss you, I will say. We'll have missed out on a lot of great opportunities. But to just be able to learn and to be able to pivot and to know that it's okay to not know something and sometimes I have to be like, okay, pride, let's put you down so I can ask a question. And that's really something that's hard for me to do, but something that I feel like is very necessary, especially when you're coming from a background that may not know all the answers in the area already.
I will echo the sentiments of the panelists, and I'll also add from a hiring manager's position. I don't care what your degree is. I can care less. I've hired people who come the traditional route, which is through computer science, and they live, sleep, breathe, and eat tech, but they can't do anything. They can't contribute from day one. Only thing I care about is how can you contribute from day one? And where we are right now in this day and age, there's no reason for you not to have the skills. Technology is 365, 24/7. And so through all types of online learnings, Udemy, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, O'Reilly, there's no excuse. So if you have a desire to get the skills and transition into tech, then find your path, find what you're passionate about, do it. You can join online hackathons, you can build something privately. There's no reason why you can't develop a portfolio without even, you don't have to participate in anything on campus. You can do it yourself. As I think it was Grace eloquently put it, Be the CEO of your own life. And this is you CEOing your life, if this is truly what you want to do.
Thanks. We've got an audience question that I thought was very interesting. So where do you find motivation when you are struggling?
For me, everybody that told me I couldn't do it. Seriously, you know, I'm one of those people, you tell me I can't do it, okay, I can do it. It's just the satisfaction of being able to say, remember when? Yeah, look at me now, you know, that, because motivation will leave. And so you have to do some soul searching and have that one thing. And I find that it's at those times when I'm, you know, feel like I'm in over my head, or, you know, I may not be the best person for this. Like, wait a minute, remember when such and such said this? And for some reason that just lights a spark. So for me, it's just proving my naysayers wrong.
I love that. I agree with like 100% because that's exactly how I feel motivated as well. I just love proving people wrong. Like I guess another way of motivation is like when I was starting out Design Buddies, like my large design community, I had people telling me that I'm just a student. I'm just like a small potato student. I'm not qualified to do this. Like, where are my credentials? And later, because I founded the community just to support other people like me who didn't come from a traditional design background or who are just learning design, people really resonated with it. And now my community is twice the size of the people who told me that I shouldn't do it. And it's like more active. So I just like really love the motion of like proving people wrong, proving my professors wrong, proving the people who told me no, because in my eyes, like for me growing up as an Asian woman, like I feel like I was always told to like say yes to agree and just like do whatever people told me to do. But then for me, I always just like question things. I was just like, yeah, so I feel like no means yes to me, so I just go for it because I don't need permission. Another way of motivation for me is just like seeing the impact Design Buddies had on people. Like I had people like every day messaging me on LinkedIn telling me how Design Buddies inspire them to keep pursuing design even if their parents weren't supportive of them. So just like proving people wrong and also like seeing the impact that my work has and people just like telling me, that just like keeps motivating and keeps inspiring me along the way to keep creating and building communities to support people.
Thanks. Does anyone want to add something to this, or I can give another question from the audience?
I would like to add to it if
Go for it.
possible. For me, it's really grounding myself into the reason why I'm doing it, and kind of like that periodic check-in of, am I even happy? Am I doing this for the right reasons, right? Because I have this passion and I have all these amazing things, and sometimes when I'm struggling, I lose sight of that. And I have to also kind of take stock and reevaluate of, is this even the path for me? Am I doing it for the right reasons? Does this align morally, ethically? Does it make me happy? Do I want to wake up doing this? And so that's a very deep introspective level, but it's also, how am I serving my customers, right? Because I want to make sure that I'm providing the best resources for the girls and the people who are in my community. And so if I'm doing that and it maintains that alignment and fulfillment for me, that kind of keeps me going. But also like hearing that from another person is kind of nice. Sometimes, I won't deny that. But that's also why you build your family the way you do, right? And so that's kind of like how I sometimes stay motivated, especially when I'm burnt out sometimes, because again, that saying yes to everything, I'm in that phase right now that I'm starting to dial it back and be like, Catalina, there's only 24 hours in a day. We haven't bent space-time yet.
Thanks. Does anyone want to add more to this question, or should I go to the next question? Next one? Okay. There's a question's got a lot of upvotes from the audience. Some of the panelists highlighted the importance of networking, especially by reaching out to people via LinkedIn and setting up coffee chats. I'm a person that would really love to form meaningful relationships / family with people I'm inspired by, but sometimes I find it intimidating or awkward to form that connection virtually. How do you break the ice or make these connections long-standing?
My answer is pretty short. I'm in research. A lot of researchers just use Twitter. You just follow a researcher on Twitter. You read one of their papers and like, it has to be like, I try to go for their most recent paper and then I go like, hey, I read that paper that you just published, or sometimes they tweet about it. So I'll retweet them or I'll respond to their tweet and I'll be like, hey, I love this paper. I can't wait to see, like, you know, can't wait to keep up with your research or whatever. And I follow them and they usually follow me back. And then I just like slide into their DMs and we just like start discussing research stuff. It's, people really like it when you compliment their work. It's just human nature. We love compliments. So just start with a compliment.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love that as well. I also do the same with designers, and I look at their portfolio instead. For me, it was mostly LinkedIn, and Facebook groups and events, and Discord channels, Slack channels. So also like connecting people in a professional setting, but also in like a casual setting, like event where people are generally more relaxed. And I just like try to ask about their day or like what they like to do. Like sometimes I like to ask like, what hobbies do you do to inspire your career in design? Or like, what are some of the learnings you learn? And just like asking questions that are kind of, let's just like, tell me what's the difference between a junior and senior designer. So I would ask questions like kind of about them and make the conversation focus on them instead, and always ask how I can help out. I just kind of go from there, and also following up to maintain the connection warm. So I actually have a spreadsheet of everyone I've like kind of reached out to, who might be able to help me like be a mentor or sponsor in the future. So every 3 months, I always say like, hey, thanks so much for taking your time to chat with me. I learned this, and I've been interning at EA, landed a summer and fall internship. Thank you so much for your help again. Hope you're doing well. So just following up, keep making the connection warm, and keeping a spreadsheet of everyone. That I also have notes to remind myself like what I've talked about. So that also helps like keep the connection warm too, even after I've talked to them once.
Thanks. Thanks for getting thumbs up from the audience.
For me, it's kind of been hard, I will admit, in this technological age. I'm still kind of learning it. It's crazy because my kids are better at Snapchat than I am. But what I usually do is I just talk to them as a person, right? Because even though I want to advance myself in my career or I want to do a specific purpose, if we don't mesh together as people, the relationship's not going to work out, right? And so I kind of start off with, oh, hey, I thought this was like really cool. I like that you're doing this. But also a lot of our conversations aren't necessarily even around the topic that I'm wanting information on. It's more like, how are you doing? COVID's being rough. Like, how's that going for you at work? And like, how are your kids and everything like that? Because ultimately, people want to be seen as people. And like, yes, we build these networks and connections and socialize, but on a fundamental level, we just want to interact with each other. And so that kind of like keeping in touch and being like, hey, so a lot of the times I connect with people on Facebook or Instagram, more so actually than LinkedIn, and through text. I'm just like, hey, periodically like, hey, what's up? Like, I haven't heard from you in a while. Like, how's the dog? You know, just like very mundane things, but it keeps the conversation going. And I truly want to know how the dog is doing. So that's how I kind of network, especially in the time of COVID.
Thanks.
I just want to add to what Catalina said. I feel like LinkedIn tends to be very like fake and depersonalized, at least for me, because everybody's just trying to put forward their best foot all the time, and it's just too much. So that's why like I prefer also, as Catalina said, like she goes on Instagram and other forms of social media. I prefer Twitter because that's where everybody really posts their opinions. So you can easily like tell if somebody is going to mesh well with you through their Twitter feed.
Thanks. Does anyone want to add anything to this, or should I go on to the next question? Next question. What is a skill or knowledge base that you think is important in tech but is not often talked about? Why is it important?
I'll answer this one. The importance, communication. In order to, depending upon how far you want to go in your tech career, you have to be able to articulate outside of your development team. You have to be able to cross the aisle and be able to speak in business terms, because in a lot of cases, you have the business users who are like, you know, I don't want to engage with IT because they think on such a higher level. So therefore, a lot of things get lost in translation. And you find that what IT delivers doesn't necessarily meet the demands or the needs of the business. So being able to step outside of that outside of your comfort zone and actually engage with the business and understand how they interact within the organization, that can take you very, very far in your tech career. Because not only are you able to engage with your technical peers, but you are able to speak to the business in a manner that they're able to understand. So being able to communicate outside of your tech teams is a skill that's often overlooked.
I would say self-awareness, knowing what you don't know and owning that, but also having a plan to improve in that. I guess an example is my internship last summer at Intuitive Surgical. So basically what happened was I got this internship. I had half the qualifications. I didn't know half the programming languages they listed. I only had 1/3 the experience they listed. And at my internship, I actually got the offer, but then at my internship, I met this other intern. He was like, "You stole my job." And he is a male, same age, studied CS, been living and breathing coding all his life. But then because I think like for me, I got the job instead of him for that role because I just showed that, yeah, I know I'm a bioengineering major. I'm trying to improve my programming at that time. And I know I don't know, but this is what I'm going to do to learn. So self-awareness, really demonstrating that in the workplace and during interviews is really, really important to be authentic overall. And having people like be easier to work with you because you're honest and authentic and everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wanted to add another skill that I think is very important is empathy. I've always been of the opinion that empathy is what drives innovation, because in order to solve all the problems in science and engineering, you need to be able to listen to people, especially those who are different from you, and understand their problems. And that kind of is what comes with empathy. And you also have to be humble enough to admit if you made a mistake and try to actually genuinely try to make it better. Because as a researcher, if I was just like, oh no, you're wrong, you know, I know everything, I just wouldn't get very far in my career. So just be humble and have and empathetic.
Nothing to add. They so eloquently stated it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they very great answers. Next question I have is, what parts of your work do you find most fulfilling and why?
For me, it's interacting with my kids. They certainly know how to keep it real. 100%. I'm actually 4'10", so some of these kids are taller than me, and they don't let me forget it. So it's always interesting to see their take on technology as well, as especially in children with young ages. The more they interact with technology, the more their brain actually changes, right? And so to see their take on current trends that are happening, and like all of that, that keeps me really happy and really passionate. And like, this is like, I'm doing this for the right reason, not only to introduce them to technology, but in a way be a warner of technology, right? That we need to be able to moderate our time in a technological space for our own healths. And so that kind of keeps me grounded. And not only that, but who doesn't want to break up a line and make the teacher really frustrated?
Thanks.
I guess for me, it's just seeing the impact. Like for me, I just like really resonate with people who came from like similar background as in being told no and saying and actually turning that into a yes. Like with design buddies, like what keeps me motivated is to seeing people like the impact, seeing that people were told no and doing design, but then design buddies inspire them too. So that inspires to keep working on design buddies, like even like on top of like an internship in school in art business and everything. I spent a lot of time on design buddies just because I just get a lot of motivation from seeing people like positively impacted from my work.
For me personally, the part I find most fulfilling is how CS is so open and welcoming that I can easily combine the multiple passions that I have and my interest in social justice issues with it. I'm one of those kinds of people who like really enjoys having like multiple projects running at the same time, and each project is like different, focuses on a different issue. That really stimulates my brain. So the fact that I can have a career like that in CS is what's most exciting to me and fulfilling.
Thanks.
Well, right now where I am in my career, what's most fulfilling for me is being able to give back and open the doors for other people, primarily other diverse groups, and bring them into the space. So being in a position to make it a little bit easier for a diverse group of people, whether it's ethnic group or gender, to bring them into technology. That's really fulfilling. You know, to be able to take someone who was making, less than 50K and now they're making 90K, right? That's a world of difference to a family, right? They went from not having benefits to having benefits. That is so fulfilling, and to be in a position to do that is so rewarding.
Thanks. We are about wrapping up in terms of time. So if anyone has any last minute questions, put them in the Q&A now, or if any panelists had any like last thoughts they wanted to share. And then after that, I'll do the little sticker raffle that we're doing at every event. And thank you again to all the panelists for taking the time out of their day to come speak with us. This was definitely very like educational. There was a lot of good insights here. So without further ado, the sticker raffle. Kimberly Doe, or Kimberly Do. So I'll put that in the chat, but Kimberly won the sticker raffle. Perfect. So thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you for this opportunity. And again, thank you other panelists, because your perspective is amazing. And I hope to connect with you all after this. Speaking of which, I'm going to, oh, we don't have chat function. Okay.
You don't?
Just send us an email. I think we're all on the same email.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
I can't.
I'm happy to connect as well. Yeah, we're on the same email.
Yeah, you're on the same email chain, so you should be able to connect that way.
Have a great weekend, ladies.
Hey.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.